William Pulte joins us right now, Pulte Capital CEO. William, early on, we have really unusual speed and organization, finely tuned from Donald Trump and his team, getting these positions filled, getting them approved, they hope, and fast. What do you make of it all?
I think it's very professional. I think he knew what he was doing last time, Neil, but I think he's a seasoned pro at this point. He didn't know anyone in Washington. Now he seems to know a lot of people. And I think his cabinet is going to be filled with really dynamic people. I was fortunate to see him briefly last night and see him over the weekend. He looks youthful. He looks young. He just has clear vision, it seems like. And you couple that, Neil, with the mandate that he got from the American people, I really think a lot of good could be done by President Trump and will be done by President Trump in this next term.
Well, your name comes up for a possible position in a Trump administration. I know HUD has come up, Housing Urban Development, a variety of other positions. Can you share anything with us?
Well, HUD needs to, be more efficient. HUD needs to focus on getting resources to local areas. And I think that there's a huge opportunity, Neil, for President Trump's freedom cities to be enacted and brought across the United States, in particular across all the federal land that the government owns. They own millions and millions of acres worth of land. Right. A lot of people think of HUD and they think, oh, it's just kind of this old agency. Well, it's really the Department of Homes, and the Department of Interior is really the Department of Land. So you've got the federal government that has all this land, and there's so much opportunity to build homes. And this is the first time we've ever had a president who's a builder, Neil. And President Trump, I think, can build on this federal land, increase supply, and that's what's going to bring down home prices, Neil. We need to bring down home prices. We have a housing crisis in this country, and without drastic action, it won't happen.
Well, you were a builder, too. Your name is associated with that. It would seem like a perfect fit for you to run HUD.
We'll see. I'm happy to help the president however he asks, Neil. He's got plenty of great people around him, and we'll help him any way we can. I mean, the punchline is President Trump knows exactly what he needs to do in terms of building, but as it relates to housing, we have a housing crisis in this country. And I think with these Trump freedom cities that he wants to build, everybody's going to want to live in one of these cities, I believe, on this federal land and other land. And if we can incentivize some of these local governments, you and I have talked about this, Neil, if we can incentivize these local governments to spend this money right instead of all this corruption and everything it's been spent on, I think you could see a boom at the local level for housing starts under President Trump.
That boom, though, can lead to a backup in interest rates. Already has a little bit, not exclusively because of this, or maybe just fears that inflation ain't entirely whooped yet. And we've seen the 10-year note bond, whatever you want to call it, back up a little bit. Concerns as well. A number of big investment banks have said they'll back up even more. The Federal Reserve might be stingier with rate cuts going forward. Are you worried about that?
As it relates to interest rates, obviously you like lower interest rates, everybody does. As it relates to the housing crisis, I think it's just one element. I think the big element is the supply issue, Neil. And everybody is locked into these mortgages, these low mortgages. So not only do you not have a lot of supply being built, but you've got this locked-in effect. We need to increase supply, and that's what's so exciting about President Trump's freedom cities. And he wants to do it, to begin with, as I understand it, across 10 cities, flying cars. These things you wouldn't have thought were realistic. But when you combine Trump and Elon, these things can start to happen. And if we get supply up, we incentivize the local areas, we get rid of this corruption, I really think you could make a huge impact and solve the housing crisis, and I think President Trump can do it.
Obviously, he's moving fast on personnel and getting key people in there maybe sooner, maybe before the inauguration, as we were just saying. I'm wondering, from your perspective, and the transition meeting with Joe Biden today, John Thune, who really is, had his run-ins and criticisms of Donald Trump, getting along, everyone on the same page right now. It is Donald Trump's Washington, and everyone else just lives there. So I'm wondering if that is going to be enough. If it is still a tight House, even if Republicans were to control it, still tight, can he exert that power in a way that he can keep his troops in line to get what he wants?
I think he can, Neil. I think, this was a guy who had revolutionized television. He had revolutionized business, real estate, and what he did in New York. He got in there in that first term. The second term, I'm just telling you, there's a certain piece about him. This is just one man's opinion, but there's a certain piece about him. He really seems to know and have a strong handle on what he's doing, has a clear vision for what he wants to do. And as it relates to housing, I think that he's the first builder to be president, but he's also the first president that I think has really laid out a game plan for how to solve this housing problem. You know, the other candidate that he just beat, you know, was talking about increasing, you know, giving stimulus basically and giving 25 grand for homes. That would solve the demand. I mean, it's not even solving the demand problem. It's pouring gasoline on the demand problem. We need to be pouring gasoline on increasing supply. Good quality supply, Neil. Lots of it is what's going to reduce home prices. And that's where I think the United States needs to be focused on.
All right, we'll follow it closely. William, very good catching up with you. William Pulte, Pulte Capital CEO. Who knows, could play a very crucial role in this administration. HUD comes up, a variety of other positions come up. We'll see.